Nè, anh này là
mẹ tính mang cái hô cao su rồi chứ, nhưng mà tại vì nó có cái ăn cô sập bo mình đâu có đi đâu.
Đâu
Anh đeo cái hô cao su anh thấy thích không?
Thích lắm.
Chắc chắn rồi, mắc đồ tiền mà.
Yeah, I've been in there when they were firing, but I was supplying ammunition to the guns. When I first went in, I had my regular job. And then during combat, I was assigned to them. They're huge bags. And fly them in.
Đi.
Mình chưa đi hết cái rau này mà.
Indoor. Đi hợp coi.
Đi theo cái một tên người ta tua.
Nó một tên không thấy đâu. Ủa tới đây hết rồi.
Các tên của thuyền, các tên là những người thuyền trưởng.
Ủa. Sao luôn nha. Này hay à. Để quay cái này cái. Tiếng thứ hai, đa số tiếng thứ hai thôi.
They don't want to see the ship scrapped. We decided that we would commit our efforts and our resources to saving this ship and bring it here to the port of Los Angeles.
The previous week we had done the ballasting and got through that week pretty well, and kind of Monday morning we started to work on the physical preparation, which is pulling out the various lines. They cut the chain the day before we left because they weren't able to recover our anchor just yet.
We got to get across that in record time.
I knew that getting the Princess Island there, getting this battleship here with all its history, with all the veterans, would be a winner. And sometimes, you know, we politicians see things differently than maybe those who are actually running the court on a day-to-day basis.
Luộc trong cái nồi này nó cũng vừa để khó chịu quá. Cái mùi như là mùi sắt nó rỉ sét. Ra ngoài cái thoáng trong nồi này khó chịu quá.
These 16-inch guns are the main armament on the BB-61 class ships. And you'll find 3 turrets with a total of 9 guns. The combined rate of fire is over 18 rounds a minute. But you can see only a small part of it from out here.
The job of the battleship in the Navy, some will say it was the point of the sword. Gunfire support. It was gunfire support.
Cái ông nãy nói chuyện với mình, nó còn sạp lắm.
Ông đầu tiên à?
Cái ông đầu á. Iowa Food Storage hold 100 tấn of fresh food and vegetable. Vô trong này nè, hơi khó chịu quá. Khó chịu quá. Phải có mùi á. Qua đây được không?
Qua đây đi.
Curry giống như trong ship á mà.
Giống như ship à. Lớn quá trời hả?
Breakfast, the bacon and egg giống như mình ăn vậy. Speed line là thấy không? Pizza, curly fry, hamburger đó. Để chụp cái này nè. How much food? Một là Ý, hai là thằng Iran đó.
Ý.
Requesting they promise not to attack a list of nations for at least 10 years. Hitler would respond on behalf of the Italian leader and himself, assuring Roosevelt that he had nothing to fear. But a group of U.S. senators blocked the president's request permission to offer economic aid to Britain and France in case of war.
Thấy gì em? Con này cũng thấy. Ủa xuống này nữa nè. To continue. Đâu có ai biết cái này đâu. Có người. Có store nữa, ok. Ồ. Ồ, trong này có nè em ơi. Mấy này vô được nè em.
Đâu có, đi đây nè, người ta đi theo thứ tự chứ. Làm cái gì? Đường tao đẩy tất cả nó bước qua.
Ồ. Đúng rồi, museum này phải vẫn coi museum là ổn quá, hay quá.
Tụi Greek ở nhà tụi Greek nó very skillful cái vấn đề navy này, cái vấn đề mà thuyền bè.
Vô đâu? No boarding. Đúng rồi. Chỗ này vô nè. Hello. Đầu tiên mình đi lên tàu mà vắng người gì không? Đi bao giờ cũng có người.
Lần cũng sắp việc á. Nhớ không chạy thấy mồ luôn.
Không ai hết.
Ba đi đâu coi cho mẹ chứ đừng có làm mẹ. Dù khi nào đi shopping. Đi shopping thì phải đi làm nghề thì mới tìm được good deal.
Này nó làm gì ta?
Cái này chắc tới phiên nó phải xuống rồi. Ba lấy cái mask ra đeo lên. Có năm nào mà celebrate birthday mẹ trên thuyền không? Celebrate birthday mẹ trên ở Eiffel Tower thì có. Ba bố mẹ con lên trên đó, ôi dồi gió nó lạnh cống rồi tay luôn.
Direct your eyes up to the screen and welcome out Captain Dino Sagani.
Today is the December 23rd, 2021. We're on a ship, Princess Cruise, Majestic. So we're on the way to Cabo San Lucas. We depart Los Angeles yesterday at 4 p.m. So we will arrive at Cabo San Lucas at 11 a.m. tomorrow at the 24th, Christmas Eve. And we stay there until I think 7 p.m. And after that we go to Maryland. We stay one day on the 25th and 26th, and we will depart to Puerto Vallarta on 26th. We stay there 26 and 27, 28 we are at sea. And we go back to California on the 29th morning at 6:30 a.m. Last month, we go to Carnival. Go to the same route. Go to Los Angeles, Puerto Vallarta, but we miss Puerto Vallarta and Cabo San Lucas. Friday trip in November 2021, and in October we also take 7-day cruise ship by Carnival, not in Princess. We go to Puerto Vallarta, Maryland, and Cabo San Lucas, but we miss Maryland because of the storm. We skip that, and we go to Cabo San Lucas and go back home. So we took 3 cruise ships every for the last 3 months. Go to Mexico, the same route. So that means the first time we did that. The first time we did 3 cruise ships consecutive month. We go to Mexico. So in next month, I plan to go to Dubai to take 3 cruise ships back to back. Go to Saudi Arabia and Dubai Island and Doha. Yeah, and so we go back to back because the first time we want to go to Saudi Arabia. Before we cannot go because Saudi Arabia they not allow tourists to go their country, just new men or worker to go there. So now they open up, so I want to go there. But the thing is, Omicron virus come up, spread all over the world. So I don't know, I will cancel that or not. So let's say I just buy 3 cruise ship. We didn't buy the air yet. So if okay, we can go there, and we go to after 3 cruise, we go to take the cruise 18 days, go from Dubai to Europe, go through Oman, Jordan, Suez Canal, Israel, Turkey, Cyprus, and the last thing land in Athens, Greek. And after that, that's from 23rd to, oh no, that's the January, February 3rd to February 22nd. And 23rd we go to, from take a cruise ship from Greek Athens to Rome, through Spain, France, Italy, and we end up to Rome. So that's what we plan to do in next month, in January 2021. Reason for that, because we want to take about 2 months to go, 2 months vacation for cruise ship, because the T start to retire next month. Retire this month, after this month, if we get Medicare. So otherwise, right now she didn't get Medicare yet. So we apply for 3 months, but still going on. So I hope the car come in anytime. So I plan to buy one-way air ticket, go to Dubai, and get let open and return, because I don't know, I return from Dubai or return from Rome, or we keep going after 2 months. We may keep going to keep going to another route from Rome, maybe 2 or 3 months vacation or more. I don't know. So depend on situation right now. COVID start a lot of people infected and die. So that's where we stand right now.
Đó, lúc Henry younger 11 giờ tới 11 giờ 30. Yeah. Go for vacation nè. Nó dạy mình cách quay phim thì sao đó. Em thì nên tới cái đó đó. Cái secret to fat.
I have to say, I do love the energy of this cruise. A lot of energy coming from all of you over the last 24 hours since you got on board, and we're absolutely loving that. Now, first of all, if you weren't at the first lecture that we had today, when we had Michael Stern, nation expert on this cruise, and I'm going to turn things over to her right now. Please welcome to the stage, talking all about the western tribes of Mexico. It's Colleen.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. It's wonderful to see all of you here today. That's great. Yes, as Kevin said, we're going to be talking about the indigenous tribes of western Mexico today. Now, as of the latest census, there are 11.13 million indigenous inhabitants in Mexico. They speak 364 different linguistic variations. And obviously we can't cover them all today. So we're going to stick to the western part of Mexico, the part that we'll be touring. And even then I can't cover all of the groups. So hopefully we have a good mixture of groups today. We'll start out with Baja California, which we are basically sailing next to right now. In Baja we have the Kochimi, the Kookaburra, the Kiliwa, the Kumiai, and the Papai. We'll start out with the Kochimi. The Kochimi, excuse me. Now the Kochimi were first encountered by the Spanish explorers during the 16th century. And then the Jesuit missionaries came in the late 17th century, and they developed the Kochimi Mission that you can see there in the picture at San Javier. This was in 1699. It was deserted in 1817, but it is now restored and maintained by Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History. How did the Jesuits get the Kochimi to come to the mission? Well, food was given out by the Jesuits to the Kochimi because the Jesuits wanted to turn the Kochimi, at this time they were hunter-gatherers, and they wanted them to begin developing agriculture and to become herders of domesticated animals. But the concentration at the mission facilitated the spread of the diseases that Spanish brought with them, especially smallpox and measles. So the mission population went from 482 in 1768 to only 83 in 1808. Now in the 19th century, the Kochimi became extinct as an identifiable culture group. So we no longer have Kochimi with us today. They were hunter-gatherers, they didn't have agriculture, they didn't have any metallurgy, and their highest level of socialization was autonomous. It was small communities that were autonomous. They didn't depend on each other. As a matter of fact, there were quite a few rifts between these communities. How do we know this? Well, because the Jesuits took very good notes, and that is where we get most of our information about the Kochimi. Pitaya was a very important crop to the Kochimi. They actually gathered 2 harvests of pitaya. The first one was where they ate the fruit, and then later on they took the seeds out of the excrement and they roasted those and ate those as well. So that was the second crop. The shamans used human hair cake. Now this human hair did not come from sacrificial victims. It came from the Kochimi people because it was believed that by donating their hair to the shaman, that would bring good fortune into the family. And they were only worn by the shamans during ceremonial occasions. Now these pictographs are likely the products of the Kochimi people. They were discovered by a Jesuit missionary, and according to native beliefs, they had been painted by a race of giant people because the figures are really larger than life. They may have had meanings related to hunting magic, religious practices, or ancestor worship, but there's really no consensus amongst the archaeologists as to what the meanings of the paintings are. Moving on to the Kookaburra. Now, according to official data now, there are only about 350 to 400 Kookaburra left. But in the 19th century, colonizers documented between 5,000 and 6,000 Kookaburra. These particular pictures, the man on the right, or the left, and the woman on the right, they were taken in the late 1890s. Well, actually late 1800s. Now their first contact with Europeans was probably around 1540 when the Spanish explorers sailed into the Colorado River Delta, which is in the northern territory of where they lived. Alarcon up there on the upper right, he was the first one to arrive, but most of our information comes from Oñate in the middle there. He arrived in 1605 and he kept very good documents as to what he found in the area. Now, after the Mexican-American Wars, lands were split. I'm sure you've all heard about how California and New Mexico and Arizona and that area used to be part of Mexico. Well, when those lands were split, that was Kookaburra land. And so they lost about half of their land and a lot of their livelihood when that happened. But with the discovery of gold in California, they started the ferry business. They used to ferry people across the Colorado when this was before dams were built, and so the Colorado was very wide and very dangerous. And they would ferry people across, and that gave them a way of making a living. All of the black and white pictures there were also taken in the early 1900s. Along came the Mexican Revolution of 1910. And at that time, the Kookaburra, they joined the Magonistas. Now, the Magonistas followed a man whose last name was Magon. That's why they're called Magonistas. He was actually out of Los Angeles. And they were fighting against the imperialism not only in Mexico but also in the United States, as well as the privatized use of the land. Eventually, of course, they were defeated and forced out of their land by the Colorado River Land Company. Now, out of the large group of Magonista fighters, only these few were actually Mexican citizens. The treaty that had divided the countries was before this, and so the majority of them were out of the California area. But these few were actually Mexican citizens, including some Kookaburra. Nowadays, they are dying of thirst, they say. The lady on the right there, she's Hilda Hurtado Valenzuela. She's the president of the Cooperative Society of the Kookaburra. She gets together the people who are still making a living out of fishing. Now, the mainstay of the Kookaburra for many generations has been fishing, but they are experiencing a major drought because of climate change as well as the dams that have been built on the Colorado River. So a local resident that I talked to, she told me that she remembers her grandparents taking her fishing, and she stated, and I quote, "We have always lived off the river since I can remember. Now we can only fish once a year, and it is our main livelihood." Now, those are some of the tribes of Baja California. Baja California Sur, the south part of the peninsula, does not have any major tribes living in it today. So we will just skip over them. And we'll move on to Sonora. So we have the Guarijillo, the Papago, the Pumi, the Seri, the Tarahumara, and the Yaki. Let's start out with the Tarahumara. They call themselves Rararami, which means the running people. They live in the state of Chihuahua as well as Sonora. And they retreated to the high Sierras of those two states when the Spanish came. This was in the 16th century. Now, estimates put the Tarahumara population between 70 to 90,000 right now, but because of their remote locations, they were included in the census of 2020, but because they are so remote, we really don't think that everyone was counted. In the whole of North America, they are one of a kind because they maintain their culture, their tradition, and their language unimpaired. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they do live in remote locations. Excuse me. They have a very strong sense of fellowship. They believe in equality, mutuality, and reverence towards each other. And it's very obvious if you do run into a Tarahumara group. Now, to get into their area, we can still take the train, and the government is working on some roadways. However, the government decided that they didn't want to run the train anymore, but the tourists said, hey, wait a minute, we love that Chihuahua train. So it is still running, and that is the way to get into Tarahumara country. Now, their traditional homes were of stone, mixed stone. They built into the mountains. They're basically cave-type homes, also hewn planks. But those are being replaced little by log homes now. Now, the inhabitants of the tribe travel quite long distances during the growing season. Because they live in rocky area, they have a small plot here and a small plot here and a small plot there to take care of. So they do a lot of traveling. Some of them even like to make shelters that they move with them, and it's rocks. So it takes quite a few trips to move those shelters. And some of them have special winter homes for the colder years. Now, they have a very distinctive hunting method. It's called persistence hunting. Has anybody ever heard of that? Basically what it is they chase the animal until it falls down from exhaustion. And then they get the animal. For example, they're chasing a cow. Okay, the cow's running, and finally can't run anymore. He falls down from exhaustion, and the Tarahumara will pick him up, put him on his shoulders, and run back home. So, yes. Now, that isn't the only place that persistence hunting is it's not the only tribe that does it, but it is the only tribe in Mexico that does it. So, Raramuri, again, the running people. Well, how did they become running people? Again, because the hamlets are few and far between, up in a very mountainous region. So for communication between any of the different hamlets, of course, people would, they wouldn't walk because they didn't want to do it at night, they would run. As a matter of fact, they often run up to 700 kilometers in 1 week. Now, have you heard of the Leadville 100? It is an ultra marathon. And not even half of the participants actually finished the race. But the Tarahumara have participated, and they have won in 1992 and 1994. The gentleman in the middle of the slide there, his name is Victoriano Churro. He won in 1992 at the age of 52. I don't think he has any heart disease. Moving on to the Yaki. Now, the first contact that the Yaki had with the Spanish was in 1533, and today there are an estimated 30,000 Yakis still living in the area. Now, those who lived near the river lived off the resources of the sea, but most of them lived in agricultural communities, and they grew beans, maize, and squash. When the Spanish arrived in 1533, the story goes that an old Yaki drew a line in the sand, and he told the Spanish not to cross that line. And he refused also to give them food. They had asked for food. Now, do you think the Spanish crossed the line? Yes. They did. And that began 40 years of struggle by the Yaki to try to protect their culture and their lands. In 1617, the Yakis actually invited the Jesuits to come and stay and teach them. This was a mutually advantageous arrangement for about 120 years. They did convert to Christianity, but maintained some of their traditional beliefs. Now, the Jesuits introduced wheat, cattle, and horses. Horses did not exist in Mexico until Cortez came, and even then, that was a long way from Veracruz up into this territory. But the Jesuits brought horses with them. But they are known for 100 years of war. From the 1820s to the 1920s, after the independence from Spain in 1820, the Yakis refused to pay tax to the government. Then comes Porfirio Diaz. He was a dictator of Mexico for 34 years. And he repeatedly provoked the Yaki to try to get them to rebel in order to gain control of their lands for exploitation by investors and miners. Now, the Yakis were also sold at 60 pesos per head, something that we would consider about 22 cents today, to sugar plantation owners and tobacco plantation owners, as well as henequen. They were in Oaxaca. The henequen plantation owners were in Yucatan. And by 1908, at least 5,000 Yakis had been sold into slavery, where they worked until they died. Now, in 1917, they get a new president, Mr. Lázaro Cárdenas. He actually reserved 500,000 hectares of ancestral land. He built a dam to provide irrigation water. He provided them with advanced agricultural equipment as well as water pumps. And the Yakis have continued to this day to maintain a bit of an independence from the Mexican government. The Yakis continue to subsist on agriculture as well as fishing for those who live in the Yaqui River Delta. Traditionally, their houses always had 3 rectangles, a bedroom, a kitchen, and a living room, as well as a patio out front. They have dirt floors, wooden supports, walls are woven reeds, and then the roof is also a woven reed, which has a very thick layer of mud on it for insulation. And on their patios, mostly they have a wooden cross. And this cross is paid special attention during Lent because of their Catholic beliefs. In the lower picture there is a newer Yaqui home, but I thought it was a home, and I later found out it was kind of like a meeting place where the head of the Yaqui tribe in that area would get together. Now, the Yaki religion, like I said, was a mixture of Christianity and old Yaqui beliefs as well, and practices. Now, the deer dance is a very important dance to the Yaqui people. It's performed at Easter, Lent, and other times during the year. Flowers are also important because the Yaquis believe that every flower that grows came from a drop of blood from Christ at the crucifixion. Men greet each other saying Heisasewa, or Heisasewa, and that simply means how's the flower. They believe in an enchanted world. It's called the flower world, and it's always filled with animals and beautiful flowers. Here we have a video of the Yaki deer, or the deer dance, performed by some Yaki dancers. But understand that the deer dance is important to other tribes in the area as well. Pay special attention to how he moves his head and his feet. This isn't part of the dance, it's just removing something off. Okay, moving from Sonora south to Sinaloa, we find the Mayo. Now please don't confuse the Mayo with the Maya of Central America and Yucatan area. These are the Mayo. And they were frequent allies with the Yaki. We don't have a lot about them, but the first traces of their settlements were found or were established in 180 BC in Guatabambo in Sonora. Now this mural was painted by Luz Maria Rosas Guerras in the old municipal palace. Now in 1531 there was a military campaign to try to subdue the Mayo, but that was not achieved until 1599. And the way it was achieved was that the Jesuits negotiated a peace treaty between the Mayo and the Mexican government, or the Spanish government at that time, excuse me. But the Mayo still did not cease to resist the Spaniards, and in 1740 there was an armed uprising. The Spaniards won, and peace lasted for about a century. Now in 1867 they joined the Yaqui against the Mexican government. But a peace agreement was again reached after the 1910 Mexican Revolution, which included distribution of land as communal property. Many of these groups, that's what they were fighting for, was their land. Traditional authorities are elected by vote, and they're respected on par with the Mexican laws. Earliest inhabitants hunted, fished, and gathered plants. Eventually, they developed agricultural techniques that allowed them to settle into communities. And currently, most Mayo farm. They fish and they make handicrafts intended for use in their community rather than for sale to the tourist. Their houses are built of adobe or wood, depending on the climate and the location. Now, the flag up there in the upper left, that was designed by a young Sonoran, but we don't know if it was a young lady or a young man. And we certainly don't know the name of that person, but it depicts deer surrounded by stars on an orange background, and the orange represents the earth. Then in Nayarit, we find the Cora, the Huichol, the Nahuatl, the Tepehuan. We'll start out with the Huichol. The jewelry that I'm wearing is actually Huichol. You will find it in Puerto Vallarta. That's part of Nayarit. Okay, so Huichol originated in the state of San Luis Potosí, which is east of Nayarit. And once yearly, they travel back to San Luis Potosí to gather peyote. They have peyote. They have a peyote ceremony there, and then they gather enough peyote to bring it back to Nayarit for the religious ceremonies during the year. It's believed that the Huichol moved west to Nayarit to escape the epidemics brought by the Spaniards, again, smallpox and measles, as well as having to avoid having to work in the mines, the newly discovered mines, silver mines of San Luis Potosí. And they arrived in Bolaños Canyon, which is where they live now, and looking for refuge. They settled amongst the Tepecano people that were already there. In the summer, when the rains come, they live on their farms and make cheese from the milk of their cows. And for the most part, their diet consists of tortillas. Now, you all know of the yellow and white tortillas, but you also know we have red corn and blue corn. So we have red tortillas and blue corn tortillas as well. Beans, rice, pasta, and occasional chicken or pig that they really enjoy, chicharrones. Chili pepper, wild fruit, or vegetables of the region. Now, in this particular culture, marriages are arranged by the parents, and the kids marry between the ages of 14 and 17, and sometimes even earlier. They live in settlements. It has a community plaza, a community kitchen, a community shrine, and then individual houses, so that each married couple with their children has their own little house, but it's all in one area. The houses are built of stone or adobe with grass thatched roofs. And their crafts include embroidery, beadwork, sombreros, archery equipment. They're famous for their archery equipment, weaving and woven or embroidered bags. Like many indigenous American groups, they do use peyote in their ceremonies. Singing, weeping, and contact with the ancestor spirits are part of those ceremonies. They eat enough peyote to have a vision. And because of the visions and the effects of the plant, the shamans are